Amid political pressure, Karnataka's Minister KS Eshwarappa caught in a huge controversy following allegations of corruption and a note of a suicide that was retrieved. This is a contractor who said that he will step down from his post. That is what the minister is saying. Mr. Eshwarappa's declaration came hours after Chief Minister assured his continuing as part of the cabinet on Thursday. However, on Friday, he is expected to resign and his resignation letter is to be submitted. This is not just for the resignation the opposition had demanded. However, the pressure will now mount on the BJP government to include corruption charges in the FIR against Eshwarappa and demand his arrest.
ನೇತೃತ್ವದ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣಾಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಸಚಿವನಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾನು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನಾಳೆ ದಿನ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ರಾಜೀನಾಮೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇದರ ವಿಚಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸಿದರೆ ಆ ಯಾವ ಹಿರಿಯರಿಗೆ, ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳಿಗೆ, ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ನಾಯಕರಿಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇರುಸು ಮುರುಸು ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು. ಆ ಒಂದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ರಾಜೀನಾಮೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ.
ನಮಗೆ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಕಾನೂನು ಏನಿದೆ, ಈ ಕಾನೂನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತ ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟು, ಅವ್ರು ಬರೆದಂತ ಪತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ, ಸಾವಿನ SMS ನಲ್ಲಿ, ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರಪ್ಷನ್ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಅಡಗಿದೆ. ಆ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಹಾಕದೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದವರು ಹಂಗೆ FIR ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 36 ಗಂಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಟಮ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ರಾತ್ರೋರಾತ್ರಿ ಹೆಣನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ರು ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ, ಬೆಳಗಾವಿಗೆ. ಹಗಲೊತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ಮಧ್ಯ ಯಾರೇನೇನು ಪಾಪ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರ ಗೌರವ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ಮ ಒತ್ತಾಯ ಏನಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಮೊದಲು ಆನ್ ಕರಪ್ಷನ್.
Moving on in other news, coming in from Ukraine, devastating scenes in bombed out Borodyanka, the Ukrainian town ruined and devastated by Russian bombings, just 50 kilometers from the capital of Kyiv. Retreating Russian forces planted landmines in that city, leaving behind battered buildings on the brink of collapse. Borodyanka's residents recall unspeakable horrors, including women being raped by Russian forces. Vishnu brings us this ground report.
Здесь сидела, здесь находилась, здесь. Я все видела здесь, что происходило.
She lived during the war all the time, and she saw everything.
Were you alone or with your family?
Вы одна или у вас есть семья?
У меня есть семья, у меня дочка и зять.
She was with her family. She had a daughter and the husband of her daughter.
Yeah. Were you scared? You must have been very scared. Why did you not leave?
Почему вы не уехали, спрашивает?
А потому, когда собирали людей на эвакуацию, рашисты, они обстреливали машины, обстреливали автобусы, не давали выезжать.
Because when there was organized buses for evacuation, so the Russian troops are shooting these buses. So she's scared that if she go to the evacuation bus, she would be killed by Russians.
Did you see the Russians shooting? Did you see the Russians shooting the bus?
Вы видели, как русские расстреливали автобусы?
Я не видела, как расстреливали, потому что мимо нашего дома по Семашко я нахожусь. 10 машин, их написано было дети. Только они выехали за территорию в конце улицы, и я слышала, как стреляли.
She didn't saw the buses, but near her home there was a cars with children with huge letters children, and just moved through her house, just turned around, and the Russians shoot that cars.
The car had children in it?
Yeah, a lot of cars.
How did you see this with your own eyes?
Yeah, she saw it.
Yeah. Could you ask her to describe what she saw? This car with children. which was shot. Just describe it.
Вот просто описать вот эти вот машины с детьми и что вы там видели.
Я знаю, что у меня соседка, которая живет возле меня через забор, ее сына убили. Похоронили мы его во дворе.
А сколько ему лет было?
Ему 57 лет. Он ходил, у него дом здесь на конце улицы. И он ходил каждый день, проверял дом, чтобы разбитый, очень не разбитый.
Her neighbor was killed. He was 57 years old.
But what about the children in the car?
А что про детей в машинах что-нибудь?
Я видела сама лично 10 машин. Написано было на стекле написано дети, дети, дети.
She saw 10 cars and was wrote on it, children.
And did she see the bodies of the children?
А вы видели тела детей?
Нет, я не видела, это потому что ходили еще рашисты, не ходили по домам, взламывали двери, взламывали все. Моей дочке 38 лет. Я ее побежала к соседке, спрятала под кровать, одежды закидали, чтобы они не изнасиловали и не убили ее.
No, she didn't see because they were hiding under the beds, and the Russians get broken, the flats get broken, and rape the girls. So she trying to hide her daughter.
How old is your daughter?
38.
So you know of little girls who were raped?
А вы знаете девочек, которые... Вы знаете кого-нибудь, кого изнасиловали?
Кого изнасиловали, я не знаю, но когда она бомбили, дом разбомбили, вот этот магазин есть, фора. Мы ходили с дочкой, хотели хлеба, какой-то кусок хлеба, какое-то пропитание найти, хоть что-нибудь покушать. Там девушка была такая высоченького роста, была одета, на улице было -9, она одела на себя еще халат. Я говорю, бежим, давай, бегом, бежим, танки едут, рашисты едут. Она каже мне все равно, меня поймали русские, связали руки скотчем и глаза закрыли, и повезли себе в кабинет. А там, издевались, как хотели. И отпустили, мне все равно.
She with her daughter, they searching for something to eat because there was nothing to eat. So she met here near the store one girl. She was a simple girl. So she asking her to move out because the Russian tanks are going. She saw that. And the girl said to her that she don't care because a few days ago the Russian soldiers took her to their base and many hours do what they want with her, so she don't care.
Vlad, why don't you translate for us? Did he see people being captured by the Russians?
Вы видели людей, которые были захвачены русскими? Захвачены каким-то образом или пленены?
Нет, я видел только тех, которых убивали.
He saw only that people who was killed.
Have a lot of people been killed in Borodyanka?
Много ли людей было убито в Бородянке?
Из теробороны много.
From the territory of defense, people from the territory of defense was a lot.
And how many homes have been destroyed here? Most of them?
Много ли домов вообще уничтожено? Какая степень разрушения Бородянки?
Это критическое. Тут почти вся эта самая центральная улица, если вы можете видеть.
The whole central street and the critical. There are a lot of critical buildings in the city, and most of the buildings are in a critical status.
Right. And why did he stay on? He had no choice. Was he not scared?
Почему вы остаетесь? Вы не боитесь? Почему вы продолжаете оставаться здесь в городе?
Where I go? This is my land. I was born not here, but
this is your land.
This is my land. Yes.
Was his family here also?
У вас есть семья? Она была здесь?
Not my family. My wife раньше умерла, скажи.
She died. His wife, she died.
During this war?
No, before the war.
Right.
Before the war.
Were you in Borodyanka for the last several weeks?
Yes.
What did you see?
Что видели?
Що я бачив? Найстрашніше це було десь до 18 березня.
For
Взагалі
18th March it was the scariest time.
неможливо взагалі було вийти. Не то, що я в приватному будинку зараз переселився. Вони не давали вийти навіть з будинку, тому що я жив біля аеродрома, і там вертольоти кружили прямо над будинком.
He lives in his self house and he couldn't move out because he lives near the airport.
Right. How did you...
And the Russian fighters all the time bombing and flying all over his house.
How did you manage food and water?
Как вы добывали еду и воду?
Ну, спочатку було страшно, так як приватний будинок, в нас колодязь був. Вода була.
It was very scary, but as he lives in his own house, so he have own water.
Did you ever feel that you may not survive?
У вас было ощущение, что вы не выживете?
Да. У мене було відчуття, знаєте, такого, що нас всі покинули, що ніколи це не закінчиться, що ну, взагалі це от назавжди. Тобто відчуття такої безпорадності, коли б не було ні світла, ні газу, і саме найгірше, коли не стало зв'язку. Тобто, ти не можеш ні до кого дозвонитися. Оце з цього будинку ми з криші ходили, там на 9-му поверсі трошки зв'язок пробивався.
It was very scary. At that moment when he have no gas, he have no electrics, have no communications, especially electricians. So they go to that building on the 9th floor, and sometimes on the 9th floor there they have some telephone communications with other people. So they were scary. They just thought that it's for forever. This situation. And scary because they was simply alone here.
Was your family with you?
У вас була сім'я з собою?
Ну, в мене залишилась мама хвора, це я за нею доглядав, і мені приходилось сюди бігати. Тут у нас в цьому будинку газ є, я варив їсти, і оце туди-сюди бігав.
In this house lives his mother, and he took and in this building was the gas. So he come to the building and prepare for his mother something to eat.
Я вам скажу, знаєте, спасло єдине, що я познайомився тут у війну з людьми, яких я не знав до війни, і вони врятували мені життя і моїй матері. Це волонтери. Ліками, їжею і підтримкою.
During the war here in Borodyanka, he was met some people. He doesn't see them before, but they help him to survive and help his mother to survive.
How old is your mother?
Як звати?
Ні, сколько лет?
65 років.
65 years old.
Well, I'm glad that...
Галя.
Her name is Gala.
And what is your name?
My name is Sasha.
Sasha.
Да.
Right? Thank you, Sasha, and I'm glad you made it. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
The United States is sending ammunition, weapons and other equipment to Ukraine to aid in its war effort. At the Air Force Base in Delaware, airmen loaded military supplies bound for the besieged country onto the this is to bring it back to tracks. The United States has committed more than $5.4 billion to a total assistance as far as Ukraine is concerned, including security and non-security assistance. Earlier this week, the president had said that his administration will provide an additional $800 million in military assistance to help bolster Ukraine's defense against an expected Russian offensive in the country's east.
Is there any change in how the U.S. views Finland and Sweden potentially joining NATO given Russia's threat today?
There is no change because we believe that NATO's open door is an open door. And it is up to the NATO alliance to determine, and only the NATO alliance, to determine what its membership looks like. As you know, there is a set of criteria that any aspirant country would need to satisfy, would need to answer for before it would be in a position to join the alliance. That ultimately is a question for that aspirant country and NATO's 30 allied members.
And in the face of warnings by Moscow of military and political consequences for Finland and Sweden if the two countries become NATO members, the United States State Department reiterated NATO's open door policy and asserted that NATO would not be a threat to anyone who's not attacking NATO. Finland, a country of 5.5 million, shares the EU's longest border with Russia. And Ukrainian President Zelensky said on Thursday that 14,000 people have died in fighting in Ukraine's east since 2014, before Russia's February 24th invasion. Moscow-backed separatists have been battling Ukraine in the Donbass since 2014, the same year it seized Crimea. Zelensky said that there was a lack of response to that conflict implied to Russia that they can afford this large-scale war. Let's listen in to the leader of Ukraine.
14 тисяч загиблих за цей час. Чим відповів за це світ? Чим відповів на це світ? Запитання так і залишилося риторичним, але саме тому вони вирішили, що можуть дозволити собі ще й повномасштабну війну. Дехто ще досі сперечається, якої жорстокості мають бути санкції проти Російської Федерації. Але що тут обговорювати, коли російські війська вже повторюють на нашій землі те, що Європа бачила хіба що під час Другої світової війни.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said that attempts of Western countries to exclude Russian energy suppliers will affect the world economy. Putin added that Russian natural gas cannot be replaced by alternative resources. The Russian military operation in Ukraine has sent inflation surging to unexpectedly high levels. Prices for oil and gas have been rising over fears of a cut-off from Russia, which is the world's largest oil exporter.
Попытки западных стран выдавить российских поставщиков, заместить наши энергоресурсы альтернативными поставками, неизбежно отразятся на всей мировой экономике. Последствия такого шага могут стать весьма болезненными и в первую очередь для самих инициаторов такой политики. И что здесь удивляет, так называемые партнеры из недружественных стран признают, что не могут обойтись без российских энергоресурсов, в том числе без природного газа, например. Его разумная замена для Европы сейчас просто отсутствует. Да, она возможна, но сейчас отсутствует. Все это понимают, свободных объемов на мировом рынке просто нет.
Welcome back. Let's get your COVID update in the national capital. Cases are on a rise. In fact, in the last 24 hours, 325 cases have been reported, the highest in the last 40 days. Cases are also rising in schools across the Delhi NCR region, with the government now asking all private schools to notify the government about cases and close down the affected wing or even the entire school if the need be.
कोविड के केस लगातार बढ़े हैं और उस पे हम नजर रखे हुए, हॉस्पिटलाइजेशंस नहीं बढ़ रहे और अभी चिंता करने की किसी जरूरत नहीं।
मैं लगातार नजर रखे हुए हूँ, किसी भी स्कूल में कहीं एक भी केस आता है किसी टीचर या किसी एक बच्चे को, तो उस वक्त स्कूल भी हमको रिपोर्ट कर रहा है और हम भी स्कूल को जो भी दिशा निर्देश हैं इंडिविजुअली दे रहे हैं।
In other news, India's inflation rate is the highest it has been in the last 6 months, led by rising food and fuel prices. This increases the expenses on household essentials significantly so. So how does the middle class and the poor families cope with this inflation? Find out more in this report.
India's latest luxury item is the once ubiquitous lemon. That's selling for 300 rupees a kilo across UP. A massive 10-fold price rise in just 2 months. This has badly affected small vendors like Ram Dular Gupta, whose 15,000 rupee monthly income from this Varanasi lemon soda stall supports a family of 5.
अभी मान लीजिए कि अगर से नींबू की महंगाई की वजह से अगर से हम दुकान बंद करें तो हमारे ग्राहक जो कि पूरा जो कि इधर उधर हो जाएंगे, फिर उसके बाद में हम धंधा चालू करेंगे तो हमारा ग्राहक मिलना बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा। इसलिए कि आज 2012-13 से जो कि हमने धंधा जो चालू करके रखा है, जो ग्राहक हमारे बने हैं वो सब हमारा चितिर-बितिर हो जाएंगे तो फिर हमें बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा।
The prices of most vegetables and other essentials are up across India in the last 6 months. So I'm at a sabzi stall in Lucknow and trying to get a sense of how prices have risen. So this thali here with me has items that I could perhaps use for a one-time meal And I just want to give you an idea of the cost. So this parval here, for instance, is selling at 100 rupees a kilo. This bhindi here is selling for 80 rupees a kilo. This lemon here, something that was so commonplace at one point of time, at the moment is 10 rupees a piece. And all of these vegetables together, I guess, would cost around 35 to 40 rupees. And this is perhaps what one could eat in a one-time meal. Now, the sabzi wala here tells me that about 6 months ago, I could have got the same thali, this plate, for about 25 rupees, 25, 26 rupees, maybe 30. So there does appear to have been an increase of about 10 rupees just for one meal that I have to take. And I guess this is an indicator of the kind of prices that have risen. The solution to this, when we'll get relief, those are questions for which we don't appear to have answers right now.
India's poorest are hit the most. In Lucknow, Shashi Kashyap, whose husband works at a canteen earning 15,000 rupees a month, income that supports a family of 5, says she has reduced milk supplements for her 2 young children. And it's been a difficult time despite the government's free ration scheme.
पहले हम लोगों को 1500 में राशन आ जाता था जो हम लोग 1 महीने चलाते थे। अब तो 3, 3.5, 4,000 रुपए में राशन आता है और पता ही नहीं चलता। बच्चों का बॉर्नविटा कैंसिल हो गया है, हॉर्लिक्स कैंसिल हो चुका है।
Also affected are middle class families like Sudhir and Nimmi Agarwal in Lucknow, who say weekly outings with their children are now on hold. Sudhir runs a modular unit manufacturing business, and with the fuel price rise, raw material and transportation rates have increased. At home, milk prices are up by rupees 2 to 5 a litre in the last 6 months.
किचन चलाना इसलिए मुश्किल हुआ है कि बच्चे अपनी डिमांड करते हैं, हर नीड उनकी अब हम लोग पूरी नहीं कर पाते हैं। नींबू बहुत महंगा है, तो नींबू तो गर्मी में सबसे जरूरी नीड है, तो लगता है थोड़ा सा किधर हटाओ उधर काम चलो, नींबू बिना काम चलना नहीं है हमारा।
International pressure is there, but government can also do better for this thing by holding the prices, control prices of diesel and petrol.
No answers so far on when the situation will ease. With Ajay Singh and camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated a new museum dedicated to 14 former Prime Ministers of the country. And while doing so, the Prime Minister said it's a matter of pride for Indians that most of our Prime Ministers came from very humble families. Listen here.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi buying the first ticket for 100 rupees for the new museum showcasing all of India's Prime Ministers at Teen Murti Bhavan, which was the official residence of India's first Prime Minister, Nehru.
कि हमारे ज्यादातर प्रधानमंत्री बहुत ही साधारण परिवार से रहे, सुदूर देहात से आकर, एकदम गरीब परिवार से आकर, किसान परिवार से आकर भी प्रधानमंत्री पद पर पहुंचना भारतीय लोकतंत्र की महान परंपराओं के प्रति विश्वास को दृढ़ करता है.
Apart from Nehru, there are museums for Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi, whose residence in Lutyens, Delhi were converted after they died in office. This has prompted the Congress to question if this is a precursor to closing down these memories.
इतना बड़ा सेंट्रल विस्ता बना रहे थे, मुझे खुशी होती अगर उसी में वो थोड़ी सी जगह पूर्व प्रधानमंत्रियों को भी देते. क्या उस उतने बड़े घर में उनके पास देश के थोड़े से पूर्व प्रधानमंत्रियों के लिए जगह नहीं है?
The new museum is expected to be a new tourist destination, especially for the youngsters, with new technologies being used to engage and make it interactive and a tribute to all former Prime Ministers. The Teen Murti Lawns has a new structure, the Prime Minister's Museum, which is an attempt to make it all-inclusive for all former Prime Ministers, not just Nehru or Indira Gandhi or Lal Bahadur Shastri. But the big question remains, what will happen to those memorials which are spread across the capital? With camera person Sachin Gupta, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
Welcome back. Let's get you the latest as far as the national capital is concerned. 325 cases of COVID-19 have been reported in the last 24 hours, the highest in the last 40 days. Now, 325 cases in 24 hours is the highest since the 3rd of March. The DDMA, that's the Delhi Disaster Management Authority, are planning a meeting on the 20th of this month to take stock of the rising cases as far as the positivity rate of Delhi is concerned. Cases are also rising in schools across the Delhi NCR region, with the government now asking all private schools to notify the government about cases and close down the affected wing or, in fact, the entire school if the need be.
कोविड के केस लगातार बढ़े हैं और उस पे हम नजर रखे हुए, हॉस्पिटलाइजेशंस नहीं बढ़ रहे और अभी चिंता करने की किसी जरूरत नहीं।
मैं लगातार नजर रखे हुए हूँ, किसी भी स्कूल में कहीं एक भी केस आता है किसी टीचर या किसी एक बच्चे को, तो उस वक्त स्कूल भी हमको रिपोर्ट कर रहा है और हम भी स्कूल को जो भी दिशा निर्देश हैं इंडिविजुअली दे रहे हैं।
Well, we have with us Dr. Suranjit Chatterjee, Senior Consultant Internal Medicine, Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, joining us this morning to get us more on this rise as far as cases are concerned. Dr. Chatterjee, we're seeing a rise in cases all over again as far as the national capital is concerned. Like I mentioned, the cases as far as the weekly positivity is concerned, also the daily cases that are coming up now, more than what we've seen in the last 40 days. How concerned should we be?
There's nothing to panic, as everybody is saying, but yes, we need to be definitely cautious and we need to really follow all the COVID appropriate behavior, because actually these numbers may be low because quite a few people nowadays also do home testing and people don't report it to the government authorities. So, and even if in my private practice, what I'm seeing is the number of calls which I get from different patients has definitely increased in the last 7 days. So I would say that there's nothing to panic right now. We have to live with it in all probability. But if we don't take all the precautions, then we might be in trouble.
Right. Is it time to bring back all some of the COVID protocols, such as the mask mandates as well as those fines for not wearing masks?
I think so, because people have become too callous and the gatherings and all that have increased really significantly. And we were always saying, at least I was always saying, that for the next couple of weeks, we should be careful because we have always followed the West. And we could have done it slightly slower. I would definitely agree that they needed to be relaxed. But obviously, mask wearing has to be made compulsory again, I suppose.
Right. Doctor, you mentioned the West. We are seeing a rise in cases as far as New York and Washington are concerned. Also parts of Europe we've seen as far as France and Germany is concerned. More than 1 lakh cases a day. Even in South Korea, the cases are above 1 lakh. We're seeing this upward trend in Delhi. As far as Delhi is concerned. So is this a pattern that we are seeing, that the cases are starting to rise all over again? What kind of precautions should we be taking at this point in time? As far as 325 cases that we've seen, 137% rise in cases as far as the last 1 week is concerned in the national capital. We're seeing schools are also being shut down because of this, because of the teachers testing positive, the students testing positive. Do you think it is important to take that call, especially for the age group of children who are not even vaccinated yet?
Yes. See, I'm really not bothered about the children. I'm not worried about them that much. They all have a bit of an inflammatory syndrome. They can have, but they have been doing otherwise well. They have fared well even if they have had the infection. But what is more worrying is that they might carry the infection home, where they could be having vulnerable people like their parents or like their grandparents. And if they get infected, then we might be in trouble because the vulnerable group might behave in a different way. Although till now, whatever cases we have had, they are very mild cases. People have not really required hospitalizations. 1 or 2 of my patients required hospitalization, but that was for a different reason. But we have to start taking precautions all from now.
Right. We also have Dr. Ishwar Gilada, consultant in HIV and infectious diseases and Secretary General, Organized Medicine Academic Guild, joining us this morning. A very good morning to you, Doctor. If you could just take us through the precautions that we should start implementing at this point in time. As far as the cases are rising, we do know that the XE variant is in fact more transmissible than Omicron. If you could take us through the variant that is dominant among the recent cases that we've just seen.
See, Divya, XE variant is more infectious, but is only 10% more infectious. Somewhere it is mentioned 10 times more, that is wrong. Secondly, India had very gladly digested almost 3 lakh cases per day, almost 6 weeks back or 2 months back. So I think we should not be panicked only because of numbers rising. We need to look at trajectory of them. How many of them are landing up in hospital, requiring oxygen, ICU bed, or ventilator, or death. Currently, if you look at the case fatality rate, for India it was cumulatively 1.3%. It has come down to 0.2%, 0.1%. So I think that is what we wanted, that when the flu or the normal seasonal flu has a case fatality rate or infection mortality rate of 0.1%, if COVID brings down there, I think that is the best thing to happen. So just by some mere numbers or what is happening in the east or west, we should not be bothered at all. We should not be perturbed at all. Secondly, we should expect that some cases will come in school or opening up, people are going on travel, tourism, socialization. We should not give any heed to that. And lastly, we should also have some way to challenge. Otherwise, for example, if you develop some allergy and you start anti-allergic drug, how do you know that anti-allergic drug has to be stopped? So you need to stop 1 day, 2 days and check again. So similarly, whatever precautions we were taking earlier, fine. Whatever opening on is fine. But if there are some cases happening up, suddenly have another COVID appropriate behavior, a lockdown or mask or something, I think that is not required. Mask is not mandated, but if those who are concerned, they can wear mask. Nobody is going to stop them from using mask. Our vaccination should go on, our booster dose should go on. If you look at the fatality rate or morbidity, etc., they are inversely proportional to vaccination. So in that sense, vaccination will definitely help, and it has helped all over the world. Wherever there is a vaccination is poor, people are dying. So if you look at East, Korea or China, etc., they had suppressed their first and second wave with severe lockdown. So third wave or fourth wave, they are caught. We had first and second wave very severe, third wave was mild, and now nothing was going to happen in the fourth wave. So somewhere, all human beings all over the world are going to be infected with Omicron or any COVID virus. So if you suppress them in first or second wave, third wave, you will be caught.
Dr. Gilada, you mentioned about vaccination. So that age group of students who are not been vaccinated, how safe is it for them to be going to school? And if you could help the parents make up their mind whether they should be sending their kids to school or not.
See, safety of the student depends on safety of teachers and parents. If teachers and parents are vaccinated, staff is vaccinated, and children are not vaccinated, it is not going to make much difference. Even if children get infection, they are milder. And with Omicron, we have learned one thing, that Omicron has turned out to be a variant of support to India. It has not been variant of concern or variant of interest of investigation. So in that sense, we should not be bothered at all. We already closed down the school for 2 years. We do not know whether it was right or wrong strategy. But once we have opened up, we should be with it. Okay, you can have some kind of distancing. You can have staggered timing. You can divide batches into 2. You can have 3 days a week for one batch, 3 days a week another batch. We can all do all that. But we should never talk about any kind of clamped up activity now.
Right. Dr. Chatterjee, Dr. Gilada saying that wearing a mask is not necessary, but don't you think it's time, like you mentioned, that those mask mandates should be back because they have protected us in the past? Of course, we are seeing a rise in cases as far as Delhi and the NCR region is concerned. Some schools have shut down, also in Noida, in Ghaziabad as well. We're seeing cases rising in Gurugram per se. In the last 1 week, the cases are up by 100%. So, what kind of measures can we take? If you could help the parents, in fact, decide, because, they are all the ones who are deciding if their kids should be going to school or not. So, is it a good idea for the students to be back in school, or should they go to online classes again?
No, I would still think that the schools and all that should not shut down right now. But yes, the precautions have to be followed, because I would slightly differ that we cannot go and reach a peak and then start taking all the precautions. I would rather err on the precaution side rather than rising to a level where things become uncontrolled. Because we have seen what things happen. I'm sure that that will not happen, because we are all vaccinated. We have a lot of Indians have a hybrid immunity. They have been infected. So the chances of it really reaching that Delta type of wave is very, very unlikely. But I would rather err on the precautionary side, because precautions are nothing much. You are used to wearing a mask. Where is the harm in wearing a mask? There is no harm in wearing a mask. I'm not asking to shut down schools at all. The schools should continue. The children should go. But yes, we have to protect ourselves. They should be wearing a mask in the school. They should be following all the COVID appropriate behavior so that the cases don't go up. And the elderly people who are vaccinated, I know that they are much safe than what they were a year back. But if we don't have the COVID appropriate behavior, the numbers might go out of hand. As of now, we are comfortable. There's nothing to panic, but there is no harm in following the precautionary measures.
Right. We also have Aditi Mishra, the director and principal of DPS Gurugram, joining us. Mrs. Mishra, if you could just take us through the kind of precautions you're taking in school at the moment. What are the protocols that are being followed to ensure, especially since you've known that the cases are on a rise, anything special that you've added? What are the security, the measures that you're putting into place?
Divya, I can't hear you very well. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, you please go ahead.
I couldn't hear your question, but I presume it's about the corona cases, and I presume it's your view on what we should do as schools.
Right.
So what is happening right now is children have come back to school barely 4 weeks ago, and they're about almost 75 to 80% students in school now, happy to be back in school. And every day there are about maybe 1 or 2 cases in 100 that come up with fever and cough and cold. And most parents say it's just a cough and cold, and most of the children are not checking or not testing positive for corona, although we are treating it like corona. So in all such cases, we inform that particular class immediately so that parents are aware and there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to stigmatize. And we ask the parents to just keep a lookout for any symptoms in their child. That class is then sanitized thoroughly morning and evening, and we ensure that all the children all the time are wearing masks and staying safe and far away from each other. I think there is very little else a school can do. We do make an effort to make the children go out in small portions. That's also becoming a little difficult because it's very hot outside after 11 o'clock in the morning. But children have been made aware, so the masks are on, the distancing is on, the sanitization is on. As of now, I don't see any reason to panic. Yes, we have to be cautious, but I don't think there is need to panic and start shutting down school, because that will be actually catastrophic right now.
Right. The Delhi government has said that they'll shut down a wing of the school or the entire school if the need be, if students test positive. So, and we do know that some schools have already shut down on account of COVID cases. So, would you also be retorting to such measures if the cases rise?
Was that for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Couldn't hear you. Sorry. There's something terribly wrong with the audio.
Right. So I'll take this question.
Can you say it again? I can hear you now.
Yes, ma'am. So some of the schools have, been shutting down because of COVID cases, whether it's in Ghaziabad, also in Noida. The Delhi government is saying that, you can shut down a wing or maybe the entire school if the cases rise. You in Gurugram, would you also be looking into shutting down schools or a wing or a classroom if the cases are on a rise?
So like I said, the idea is not to shut down schools. That's not going to help. It's not as if the children are getting infections only from school. They are going out. They're going out to play. They're meeting friends. They're going to restaurants. They're going to the malls. They're going for cinema. So the infection can be caught anywhere. I think individual caution is required at every step for everybody. The masks have come down. I can see that. While in school, we insist that masks are on. Every class has a mask monitor who make sure that masks are on top of the nose and not dangling below. There are a handful of children who have asthma who can't wear a mask. They have been asked to sit near the window so that they don't feel too suffocated with the mask and inside a closed room. Right. We are trying to take every precaution. So if the question of shutting school comes, I think it's a big no from most educators and parents.
Right, absolutely. So measures being put into place as far as schools are concerned. The Delhi government leaving it to the schools to decide whether they need to shut down if COVID cases are increasing in the schools or not. For now, the hospitalization cases are low. So for now, we're safe, but the cases are rising. So please do keep that mask on because that is very, very important. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.